Hey guys, again, I'm going to start out a live stream by saying thanks to Google for adding a chat replay function where the chats actually show up when people are replaying the video as they happen during the stream. And it's automatically set up, I guess, as a default now, unless I want to turn it off. And that's great because a lot of people have gone to using OBS or XSplit in order to get that to happen on something that should have been added, like, say, years ago. But that's okay. That's cool. Thanks for giving it to us finally, now that there's some competition as far as software being used. Every time there's some innovation in software that a lot of people are using to use YouTube. YouTube likes to try to edge out the software if they can and keep everything native. So once I get some viewers and get some people to leave some comments, then I guess that'll pop up in real time for all the people who get this on playback. So that's cool. Um, so what are you guys doing today? I know what I'm doing. This evening, I'm going to go to the Caucuses. Today is Caucus Day here in Colorado, and a lot of you don't understand the caucus system that Colorado has. And I'm here to tell you, neither do I, and twice I have gone to the state assembly as a delegate, and all of the other assemblies, and tried to put myself forward to become a National Assembly delegate for my political party, and I still do not understand caucuses as well as I should probably. But basically, it goes like this. I'm about to go to my polling place, my caucus, right? And we're going to have a straw poll. This straw poll is going to ask the opinions of the people who go to the caucus site, and then not pay attention to them whatsoever. Basically, it's a popularity of people and of subjects poll, but most people go to the caucus, they vote in that straw poll, and then they leave because the rest of the goings on are uh, pretty menial, pretty boring, you know, and it has to follow Robert's rules of order. So it's something that a lot of people just get put off by. So they just vote and leave. Well, that vote doesn't count for anything. It's not binding, right? And actually, the vote that goes on is who gets selected later on in the caucus meeting as a delegate, because it's at the assemblies that the delegates vote. And this is basically another step in the republic. You know, people like to call America a democracy because they don't really understand that this is really more of a republic, and that on many levels we elect people to represent us in things instead of having a direct democracy. So, my first run in with this was in 2012. I had moved to Colorado, and I did that in like 2010. And in 2012, I went to go to the caucus to basically, it's like how other states have primaries. I was wanting to choose who was going to be put forth as the nominee for the party to run for president. Well, uh, right before all of this happened, I fell in with a group of activists who all met at the Occupy movement. Now, most of these activists that I met that were wanting to caucus, they weren't your Bernie Sanders SJW types. They were actually, because this is Colorado, they were libertarians. No heart of the rebel. I'm not voting for Trump in 2020. So these libertarians, they taught me how caucuses work. And the reason why they taught me was because they were all wanting to take over the Republican Party with Ron Paul. And Ron Paul spent a lot of money training delegates on the process on how to invade the Republican Party. And he did very well. Representatively, he did very poorly in the straw poll, but did enormously better in the amount of delegates that were pledged to him that were put forth out of the caucus process. So basically, showing up is the most powerful thing you can do, and then staying, you know, if you just show up and vote in the straw poll and you don't try to vote for somebody to represent your precinct and your county and your basically your state at every level, if you don't show up and then make sure that the people that you want to continue to represent you are the ones left, the ones that go on to all these assemblies, then your vote is meaningless, because people can have the idea that they want to game the system. And what I realized when the Ron Paul element of the Republican Party tried to take over the caucus here in Colorado was they neglected one major part of it. And that was the people running the show weren't just there for the last presidential nominee season, which happens every 4 years. They showed up to caucus 2 years earlier. And so what they got out of that was they became the precinct captains and the chairman of the state party and all that. All of that was voted for 2 years prior. So the people running the show were the people who were in it really before anybody had thrown their hat into the race as far as who was going to be running for president. Right? And yeah, these caucuses have a lot more to do with local issues than they do just the presidency, but that's the one thing that people care about, right? So, in order to become a precinct captain, you have to go in the off year beforehand if you want to be the captain during the presidential election year. So there was no chance for the Ron Paul movement to take over the Republican Party as far as being able to prevent their own motions from being ignored on the floor, because they were not the people who were running the show. They were not the people who were the chairman of each assembly. And when that chairman decides to not hear a vote from the floor, to not hear a motion from the floor, because they are selectively using Robert's Rules of Order to close down any means of being heard by the minority that's trying to take over their party, then basically there's this built-in defense against movements that have only started in the last year, because it takes probably 3 years, One 6 month time of planning, then you get all your people in a row, and then you make them all go to the precincts and grab up uh, officer slots in all of their precincts 2 years prior to the time you want to run, you know, and then 2 years after that, it'll pay off. And so that prevents new movements from just springing up and starting to support a candidate who isn't establishment vetted. So, my goal today is to see if at the caucuses there might be an easy walk in as far as getting uh, an officer position within the party. Now, in 2012, I went and I became a delegate, and that was pretty easy to do, even though there were 30 people there. It's one of those things where the people who want it can get it. If you really want it, you just make a good speech and you'll be sent forward as a delegate pretty much from the local level. And for me, I went all the way to state. I was congressional delegate, judicial delegate, and county delegate. All of it. Except for national, which, as it turns out, you need the backing of major corporations who give out slates for people that they want people to vote for, such as a special interest group like Rocky Mountain Gun Owners will put out a list of people at the state and congressional assemblies and say, "Hey, vote for these people. These are the people we want." And we know that we vetted them to vote for this presidential candidate with us. And a lot of times, the people who are on the slates are actually already in political positions. They're already your state reps, your congressmen, your state senators and stuff and whatnot. And basically, they're just getting a free trip to the national convention. You know, no, this is not about the Caucasus in Eastern Europe. And I'm sorry if any of you think that I'm taking a trip to Europe, and uh, I'm not. I'm not going to visit all you people in Eastern Europe. The Caucasus, it's that quirky thing that Colorado does instead of a primary. Anyways, uh, I went to after becoming a delegate and everything in 2012. I went to the caucus in 2014 with the intent to become a precinct captain. I went there and I ran unopposed. Like, I showed up and there were literally three people in the room other than the last precinct captain. And you need two captains per precinct. So it was like, I was a walk on. Just like that. There was a little bit of a rigmarole as far as the ceremony of it, but it was basically, I wanted it, I went and took it. And in off years, like today, like this event that's about to happen, I don't expect to run into a lot of opposition. And as far as my political resume, I can say that I've been a voter registration drive organizer. I can say that I've been a polling place coordinator. I can say that I'm a veteran. I've been a delegate twice before. Um, Now, albeit for a separate party. That's something that I don't really want to bring up as far as like how it's not that my personal politics have changed. It's just that my uh, geography has changed because where I used to live, there is no point in being part of any liberal party because the Republican Party runs the entire county and it's like 70% of voters are Republican. So in the end, uh, they're always going to win. So the best strategy I had for making my activism work back then was to try to guide it from within, either as spoiler or uh, seriously. Now, I've moved to Denver, which it's a lot more liberal up here. So I can actually be a part of the party that I belong in. So that's nice because going to lunches and stuff with people that you don't belong around can sometimes be very disgusting and icky. Especially like you go with a crowd of people to, say, the assembly, and then everyone's going out to eat at a restaurant afterward, and you go there and you hear some of the rudest, most horrible jargon about people, society in general, or the other party. And so, yeah, I feel a lot better about maybe going to the party that my actual beliefs are more in line with because I heard a lot of disgusting shit when I was a delegate for the other party. So, 2014, walked on, became a precinct captain, but also on that same year, I moved and completely welched on my duties as a precinct captain in the precinct that I was in for that party. Now, because I didn't really like the party, I had no problem leaving them high and dry, right? I wasn't going to pound the pavement, walking all around and knocking on doors and saying, "Hey, come vote for your party." When the whole point of me being in it was that there's no point in being in the other party. So, yeah, I was just in that party because that's all I could uh, be able to do and be effective at what I was doing. So, 2016, I had too much going on in my life, and I actually felt like everything was sewn up. I was one of those people that was completely duped by the polls that said that Hillary Clinton was going to win by a landslide. I just did not feel like there was any reason at all for me to help. I felt like it was just a shoe in. And especially when I saw that it was Hillary versus Donald Trump, I felt like, holy shit. It can't get any easier for her. I was duped by the polls. Those polling numbers were really off, you know. But part of why that happened was my fault and the fault of everyone else who didn't get involved in 2016 because they thought that Hillary was a shoo-in. Well, complacency led to Trump being president. And so I think I'll be back at it tonight. Finally getting back into the game. And I'm putting myself in a position where I don't know who the eventual nominee is going to be. I don't know who the people running will be in this race in 2020. But I know that if I go there to the caucuses today and I'm able to eke out uh, a precinct captain spot, I will then be able to help dictate through Robert's Rule of Order what is allowed to be said when people caucus in 2020 and more people show up because it actually has to do with the presidency, right? So this is the day that you would start if you wanted to make a change at the lowest level in politics. Today is the day. Even though we don't know who's running, today is the day. Heart of the Rebel just asked, who do you think will be running for the Democrats in 2020? I can say that I've seen some pretty good posturing by Elizabeth Warren and Tulsi Gabbard in particular. And there's been some non answers by Joe Biden. But I think that if there were a poll done about who people wanted and it left off Bernie Sanders, I think that Elizabeth Warren would win the poll. I don't know where she'll be in 10 years as far as where she will be in the party. But if she played her cards right, I think that she could really dominate the rest of the field. Especially with the really scathing and witty videos of her that are just on YouTube and people have preserved them, you know, and I feel like her calling card is how she has spoken to large corporations. So today is the day. And I would urge any one of you that are in Colorado, please go to your caucus place and vote in the straw poll, and also stay later. That's where all the magic happens. Stay for the whole meeting, and then you'll see what actually goes on behind the scenes. If you've got any more questions about what I'm doing today, you can pop them in right now because I'm able to see the screen and respond to your stuff. It's not like when I'm driving and live streaming. Oh my goodness, that was funny. I could see, because my phone was sideways, I could see people's messages going sideways, and I'm like, what's it say? I can't read that. I'm driving. Shit. That was fun, testing out the ability to live stream while I'm driving. So I won't be going there with my old delegate badges. If I were to remain in the Republican Party, I probably would have gone with them because I did keep them. You know, they're little credentials badges that are laminated and all that, and they're very beautiful. And it wouldn't help me tonight, I don't think. The badge from my job might help because it says addiction counselor, because that's a job that I feel like the Democratic Party actually might respect, you know, same as teachers. Okay. Let's see. This next question is, aren't the Democrats broke? Can Clinton keep control? I don't know. If crowdfunding becomes a thing and Bernie's business model, like Justice Democrats, becomes the in chic thing, then maybe no one can keep control. Even outside forces, like people who don't even want to declare themselves as Democrats, couldn't take control. I might be able to go in there and run House for a little while, even though 2 years ago I wasn't a Democrat, registered wise. You know, my feelings might have been there, but I wasn't registered as one. And someone named Gannon wants to know if I know a child molester that was let off on a technicality. No, I don't know him at all. And let's see. Oh. Heart of the Rebel says the Republican gubernatorial candidate is running on the marijuana legalization platform. Okay, well, we already have marijuana legalized here. I guess you're talking about Nebraska, which that would be great for your state because there's a lot more farmland on the eastern side of your state than there is in this dry place we like to call Colorado. You know, we've got more minerals because we've got more rocks. You know, the whole western slope of Colorado is horrible for farmland. But also the western side of Nebraska seems to need a lot of help when you're growing stuff. I drove through there and was like, wow, this, you know, there's a lot more cactuses here than I would have thought in Nebraska. So yeah, I don't know what to expect when I get there because also we're dealing with a really charged up electorate now. You know, when I was going to be a delegate, when I was running for those low level positions and just walking on sometimes, the president was Barack Obama, and the sheer hatred of Barack Obama that I was encountering from Republicans wasn't actually that bad in Colorado. The sheer hatred of Donald Trump that I see from Democrats here in Colorado is massive. And I don't know that it being an off year will keep people from being interested in politics. You know, I might walk in there to a standing room only room, which would suck because I want to bring my camera, you know, and share it with all you guys. Um, that's all. The caucuses will be starting in about 9 hours, and I'm going to get a really good nap before then, and put on some spiffy clothes, make sure that people see my best foot forward because they might be voting on me representing them, you know, in the future. And if I do get a delegate spot, then I'll be able to film the assemblies that will happen later on in the year. And they won't be the most exciting things this time around, but wait till next year, or sorry, next 2 years. Wait till 2020, and if I get any sort of position within my precinct, that would give me a much greater chance of becoming a delegate and being able to film the lowest levels of the presidential race primaries as they happen in Colorado, which are caucuses. And all of those assemblies are very interesting. They were when I was in the other party, and I'm sure I'll find a lot that's interesting in the party that I've chosen to become a part of now. I love Denver. God bless Denver, you know, and fuck El Paso County on the horse it rode it on backwards, because that was a lot of inane bullshit that I went through just to be a part of the political process when I lived down south there. And up here, I actually have the freedom to uh, be a part of either party if I want to, because this state is really purple. You know, it's not all the way blue, it's not all the way red, and I just felt like in that one bastion of completely Republican controlled county, I was just. I was feeling so isolated, even though I was surrounded by a theater full of people. I felt alone in there, and just watching as the most horrible decisions were made. You know, it's like watching lions being fed in the Coliseum. You know, and having an objection to it. It's like, what are you gonna do? Those people are rabid sometimes. There's certain words that can be said in those assemblies, certain buzzwords that just, you know, for me, it made them all look retarded. But for them, it was like a dog whistle that would make a dog just fucking snap to attention and bark and attack, you know. Anyways, I'm gonna get some sleep. Take care, everyone. It's been a nice live 30 minutes with you all. Uh, Remember, my chats now show up in video now as a default from YouTube. That's a great new feature. So if you have anything nasty to say, make sure you say it so that you just spoil the stream forever. Right? Right. All right, guys. Take care.